Welcome, future pilots, to this explainer. Look, we're going to skip the fluff today and dive straight into mastering the Aerodrome Traffic Zone and the standard overhead join. This stuff is absolutely guaranteed to pop up on your PPL ground exams, so let's break it down right now so you can walk in there with total confidence.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the dimensions of an ATZ, and really building that mental model.
So the absolutely crucial thing to understand here is that an ATZ isn't just some random chunk of arbitrary airspace. It's actually a protective airspace cylinder, right? Designed specifically to shield the traffic operating at a particular airfield. Imagine it like this giant, invisible, three-dimensional fortress protecting aircraft that are taking off, landing, or flying in the circuit. Basically, if an aerodrome has an ATZ, it means there's enough activity going on there that unregulated pop-in visits are just a massive safety hazard.
Now sear this number into your brain for the exam. 2,000 feet. An ATZ always extends from the aerodrome elevation up to exactly 2,000 feet above that specific airfield. And listen, it doesn't matter if the airfield is sitting right at sea level or perched up on a 500-foot hill, the ceiling of that protective cylinder is literally always 2,000 feet above the aerodrome surface elevation. Anything above that, well, you're outside the ATZ.
Okay, so what about the width of that cylinder? Well, the radius of an ATZ actually isn't one size fits all. It expands depending on the length of the airfield's longest runway. So, if their longest runway is 1,850 meters or less, you're looking at a 2 nautical mile radius from the center of the airfield. But, and this is key, if they have a runway greater than 1,850 meters, usually to accommodate larger, faster traffic, that radius expands out to 2.5 nautical miles. So 2 numbers, 2 radii. Definitely jot those down.
Just a quick little caveat here, and honestly a really great piece of trivia for your exams. Remember that these specific dimensions are UK rules decided by national authorities. They aren't global ICAO standards. Also, kind of like a chameleon, the ATZ itself adopts the classification of the airspace it sits inside. So if the ATZ is in Class G uncontrolled airspace, it takes on Class G rules, though, with its own strict ATZ entry requirements layered on top of that.
All right, let's move right along to Section 2, the actual rules of the zone, focusing on communication and clearance.
This right here is your exact blueprint for legal entry. First things first, you absolutely cannot just wander in. If the airfield has air traffic control, ATC, you must get explicit permission to enter. Now, if they only have an Aerodrome Flight Information Service or an air/ground comm station, you don't technically get a clearance, but you must obtain enough information from them to continue safely. Once you're inside, you're required to maintain a continuous radio watch on their specific frequency. And finally, remember that communication is a two-way street. You've got to report your position and altitude upon entering the zone, and then again immediately before leaving it. Basically, no ghosting the radio operator.
Now, before we take all these rules and apply them to the overhead join, I've got a quick dad joke to give your brain a little breather. Why did the student pilot get sent to their room? Because they had a bad altitude. Yeah, I know, groans are perfectly acceptable. But hey, let's get back to the serious stuff. Which brings us to Section 3, the standard overhead join, and actually putting all of this into practice.
I want you to really visualize this carefully, stepping through it exactly as it's laid out. First up, you fly directly overhead the airfield at 2,000 feet above the aerodrome elevation. Why 2,000 feet, you ask? Because that puts you at the very top, safest limit of that ATZ cylinder we talked about earlier, keeping you well out of the way of the traffic zooming around in the circuit below. From way up there, you can easily observe the windsock, spot other aircraft, and just generally get the lay of the land. Then, step 2. You only begin your descent to circuit height once you're safely positioned on the dead side of the runway. The side where absolutely no aircraft are taking off or landing. Finally, step 3, you cross over the upwind end of the runway at circuit height to seamlessly join the live circuit traffic.
But wait a second, how do you even know what the correct circuit height is before you get there? Or, for that matter, which side is the dead side? Well, you've got to do your homework. You have to look up your destination in the UK AIP, the Aeronautical Information Publication. Specifically, you're going to want Part 3, which covers aerodromes, and they split it alphabetically to make it super easy. 81 covers aerodromes starting with A through L, 82 covers M through Z, and 83 is for heliports that aren't located at standard aerodromes. This is exactly where you're going to find those golden nuggets of information that make your overhead join smooth and completely legal.
I'm going to leave you with this final thought for your studies. Master the dimensions, respect the rules, and you will own the overhead join. Keep those numbers, 2,000 feet, 2 miles, 2.5 miles, super fresh in your mind. Next time you approach a busy, uncontrolled airfield, ask yourself, are you truly visualizing that invisible cylinder, or are you just sort of hoping for the best? If this explainer helped clear up the ATZ for your ground exam, please hit that like button and definitely subscribe for more PPL study guides. Fly safe out there and good luck on your exams.